going in front. What's the right way to do it? I don't know. Yes, I do. That's right.
So my name tag says, what makes you anxious? And my answer is being alive. Breathing is terrifying. So my little picture reminds me to breathe, because breathing, taking deep breaths, is how I calm myself down. I often sound like I'm in labor. So how many of you have experienced anxiety? Hallelujah. I thought I was going to have to accuse you people of lying, or to ask you to share whatever it is that you're taking with me. So I don't have to do that, and I'm very happy. So who can tell me, very briefly, what is the difference between fear and anxiety? Yes, ma'am.
Fear is an actual risk of harm. Anxiety is everything else.
Anxiety is the gift of being terrified, not knowing why, all the time. In my experience, at least. Anxiety makes you do potentially ridiculous things when you give it too much power over your life. So I decided that I would tell you a story about a time when I allowed, a long time ago, before I was much more mature and self-aware than I am now, when I allowed anxiety to get the better of me. Imagine, if you will, 10 years ago. So I just turned 40 2 weeks ago. Yeah, thank you. So 10 years ago, just before my 30th birthday, I got a brand new job. I started working in a completely different field. I was working in the mental health field. I was working with a bunch of very brilliant people who were highly educated, and they knew everything, and I was the new kid. I felt like I had something to prove. I had one very specific skill set that I wanted to make fit into this department. And my skill set was to teach people how to talk, because I'm very good at that. Okay, not necessarily teaching, but talking, I got that down. So I was teaching self-advocacy to individuals with mental health diagnoses and disabilities. And we were gearing up for the General Assembly session, and I was going to start doing these trainings, okay? So this one morning of the first training, I woke up and I was very enthusiastic and very excited and also completely terrified, and felt the need to prove myself every second of every day, because, that's what I do. And so that morning I woke up, I had bought some new clothes, and I had in my mind that I am going to wear this thing today. Okay, these pants, I had 2 little kids, my body was a disaster. I had these pants, and I said, no one has the right to have their butt look this good with 2 little kids, okay, right? So I was really excited about these pants, and I had this wonderful blouse, and I was so excited, and I put the clothes on, I put the blouse on, and I realized that, how many of you have little kids, or have had little kids? Okay, so at some point when you have small children, you realize that time passes and you don't think about fundamental things for a long period of time, and then one day you wake up and you're faced with a bra problem. Okay? So here I am, my bras that I had were lace. I was wearing a very thin shirt. The bra, the pattern, the lace pattern from the bra was showing through the shirt, and this just would not do. And instead of picking another shirt, I lost my mind. Walking around in circles, freaking out, and all of a sudden I had this epiphany. It was literally like a cartoon light bulb moment, okay? I know exactly what I'm gonna do. And I run down the stairs, and I run past my husband, and I go into the laundry room, and he certainly knows that I am a lunatic, so he was, whatever, she's doing something crazy again. So I'm standing there in the laundry room, and I always imagine this story from my husband's perspective. He's standing in the kitchen, he's close enough to hear me moving around in there, and he hears this very loud ripping noise, just over and over again, and I walk out, with my bra completely covered in duct tape. Because that was the solution to the problem. Right? Okay, so let me tell you, it was the greatest feeling I have ever felt. The girls were like, oh my God. So here I am, I put on my shirt, I put on my pants, I'm walking around, I'm doing my thing, I got the whole day. The training wasn't until the evening, so I went through the whole day, I felt like a friggin' supermodel. It was amazing. And so around 5:30, right before the event was to begin, I pull up all my stuff and I put it all in a cart and I get into the elevator with two of my colleagues. And we're standing there talking about the day and all the things that, had been going on, blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden, one of the ladies in the elevator gets this weird look on her face. And then she says, in a voice that I still think to this day was very loud, "Oh my God! Do you have duct tape on your boobs?" Oh, God. And I have to admit to you that, so much humiliation that I almost don't fully remember what happened for the next few minutes, but I know that I, made a joke about needing to pay a visit to Victoria's Secret and then, buttoned up my shirt and, kind of held my head in shame. And I stood there for a second, and these two ladies were hysterical. They were like, "Oh my gosh, what is wrong with you?" And the one woman looked at me and she said, "That brings new meaning to the term holding it all together with duct tape." And so, I got off the elevator. I held on to the front of my shirt for the rest of the evening to be sure that it wouldn't pop open. I did my training, and I didn't completely destroy anyone's life. I didn't completely destroy my own life. And 2 weeks later, on my 30th birthday, I walked into my office, and the entire thing, from ceiling to floor, was covered in duct tape. Why do I tell you that story? Because, and if you've ever heard me speak before, this is something that I've had to learn to tell myself over the years. No one has any idea what the hell they're doing. Thank you, I'm done. It's not as if this half of the room was born with an instruction manual and you guys didn't get it. Everybody just shows up every day with what they've got and they do the best they can. All of us. The smartest people in the world. Doctors, the smartest doctors lose patients. The smartest lawyers lose cases. The smartest branding experts create puppy monkey baby. Which I guess was effective because I remember what it is, but I have no idea what the hell they were selling. So in 2016, the smartest people in the room assured us that Hillary Clinton would be president right now. In 2012, the smartest people in the room assured us that Mitt Romney would be president. We don't always get it right. And I could have locked this story, and so many other stories, away in my arsenal of shame and hidden it from the world and said, this is this is proof that I don't deserve to be in the world, that I don't deserve the things that I want because I put duct tape all over my bra. But at some point, I got tired of being afraid that people would find out that I'm not perfect. And I just came out to bask in the light of my imperfection. This is it. This is me. And you and everyone on this earth, no one knows what the hell they're doing. What I learned from that horrifying experience was that I don't actually have anything to be anxious about. A fact which I was able to hold in my brain for about 4.5 seconds. I had to come up with some personal strategies to help myself remember. And I also need to take medication and meditate, eat a highly restricted diet, limit caffeine, and focus nearly every second of my life on not being anxious. And sometimes it actually works. Bottom line is that I am an expert at anxiety. I have lived inside of this body for 40 years, and I don't remember a day when I haven't been completely terrified of everything. Every potential outcome in every situation. And so I had to come up with some strategies, and I call these strategies the 4 R's of managing anxiety. It works at work, it works at home, it works with your personal relationships, but I wanted to give you a gift because I have to talk to myself an enormous amount. In fact, all of my greatest ideas have come out of conversations that I've had with myself, frequently. Okay, does anyone else talk to themselves? Oh God, please say yes. Oh, come on. 4 people in the room. This is a room full of creative people. Give me a break. All right.
It doesn't have to be out loud.
Oh, but mine is.
Mine is too.
So, the first 2 R's are paired together. Recognizing resistance. Has anybody ever read The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield? It's my Bible, right? And so Pressfield talks about resistance as the thing we understand as that voice in the back of our head that tells us that we can't do it, that we're not really that good, that we're not talented, that we're not creative, that the world doesn't care in the least about anything we have to say, so we should just go sit in a hole. Maybe only my brain says that to me, but you know what I mean.
A shot line.
And you will be my guru, sir.
Yeah.
So this is the place where things like meditation and mindfulness and self-compassion and just slowing down have really been helpful for me, because it allows me to recognize that resistance isn't actually a thing. It's not this, I kind of like to think about it as a frightened child. Okay, so if you have a frightened child in your midst, if it's your child or you're, a child in your world, you don't tell them to shut up and sit the hell down. I mean, maybe some of you do. That's very entertaining. Or you don't ignore them, right? You hold them close and you remind them that everything is going to be okay. And ultimately, everything's going to be okay. Because the opposite side of resistance is inspiration. And Pressfield talks about the ability to find inspiration or be gifted by inspiration, and that is like our, we think, some people think that inspiration falls from the sky. It just falls from the sky, and if it hits you in the head, then you are the most fortunate person in the world. But what he tells us, what he told me, like he was speaking directly to me, was that inspiration is a gift from the universe. Inspiration gives itself to you when you show up every day, when you put in the work, when you're disciplined, when you're focused on your goals, when you treat it like it's a job, whatever it is. And resistance keeps us from showing up every day. Resistance tells us we're not good enough. So we don't sit down and write or do the thing or focus on the new skill. Resistance is the thing that keeps us where we are. Because our bodies, our subconscious, it doesn't like new. It doesn't like us to change things. Even if the outcome of the new thing is the greatest thing that ever was, our bodies, our subconscious wants to keep us exactly where we are. So if you can slow down and you can recognize those moments where your brain is trying to sabotage you, where resistance is trying to keep you from becoming whatever it is, the best of whatever it is that you want to be, whether that's professionally or personally, or you want to start a new hobby, it doesn't matter. Just slow down and just remind yourself, I got this. It's okay. Resistance, we're cool. I know you're trying to protect me and keep me from, having my shirt pop open in an elevator and have everybody see the duct tape on my boobs, because literally that's all we're doing every day, people. We're just holding it all together with duct duct tape and hoping that nobody finds out that nobody knows what the hell they're doing, right? Okay, so the second R, well, the third R, the second section, the third R is relationships. You are not alone in this world. Stop acting like it. The weight of the world does not belong on your shoulders. It's okay to ask for help. The relationships you build in your life are the greatest indicator of the success that you will find. Why? Because you can't build something all by yourself. I mean, you can try, but that's just you over there talking to yourself, and nobody's going to want to be a part of that. The gift that you can give to the world is that you let other people help you. Be hardworking, be a visionary, be reliable, be trustworthy, be all the things that you want to be. Show up every day and give your all. But let other people support you in the work. Whether that is your partner, let them take a little bit of the load off. We don't have to martyr ourselves. Whether you're at work and somebody says, hey, I can help you with that, or can I take something off of your plate? Now for me, it's really difficult to do that because I don't often know how to hand something over because I'm all over the place all the time. But if you stop and you slow down and you give another person the gift of giving back to you, then you've built something. You've built it one person at a time, one thing at a time, and it feels better. It's so hard to remember that we're not alone. Nobody understands me. It's so hard to be me. My brain is different than everybody. Look, I live with depression and anxiety. I am incredibly self-centered. You can laugh at that. I am incredibly self-centered. So it's a lot of self-talk. It requires me to have this conversation with myself. People do understand me. It is okay for me to stand up in front of a room full of complete strangers and share my most innermost thoughts, feelings, and humiliations. Right? So the last of the R's is to recommit. All of these things, before I explain recommitting, all of these little steps, all of these things that I have taken on for myself and my own health and my own sanity require slowing down, require stopping a lot of the time, require sitting in a completely silent space and asking myself hard questions. Ask yourself, why do you do the thing that you do? Do you do it so you can be miserable? Do you do it so you can be overwhelmed? Do you do it so you can be stressed and afraid and worried that everybody's going to find out that you don't know what the hell you're doing? Obviously, you don't do it for those reasons. What drew you to what you're doing now? What drew you to the thing that is passionate? Did you want to build an empire? Did you have a vision to change the world? Did you want to help people? And are you doing it? Or are you letting your anxiety get in the way? Are you letting resistance tell you that you're not good enough or you're not ready? Every day, every time, I was talking to somebody about this, every time I have the opportunity to come and do this, I spend the entire 24 hours before going, you have nothing of use to say to anybody. Why are you doing this to yourself and to them? Every day, all the time. So, I get it. But I had a message, and I wanted to share it, and so I'm doing it. And if you get it, you get it, and if you don't, well, we can talk about how I can make it more effective, but I knew what I wanted to do, and I set out to do it. Are you on that path? Or are you listening to the voices? There are so many voices, and they aren't the ones that live inside your head that I often respond to when I'm alone in the car. But They're often the voices of our parents, or our spouse, or our partner, or our business associates, or our children, or the expectations that some sort of ethereal thing out there tells us that we're supposed to do, that we should be doing. And when we listen to all of those voices, then we forget why we started in the beginning, why we started what we did. What was the spark? What was that little bit of light that made you say, this is the thing. This is what I want to commit my life to. Sit in your quiet room and think about what that is and recommit to that. Strip all the garbage away, all the other people's voices, and recommit to that one tiny bit of light that you want to share with the world. The bottom line is that everything we need exists within us already, okay? Including the ability to learn new skills, ask for help. If you don't have it, you can get it. So there's nothing for us to feel anxious about. There's nothing to be worried about. You have everything you need, and you have every right to go out into the world and do what you think is going to make a difference. All you have to do is calm the hell down, take a deep breath, and remind yourself, please say it with me, that nobody knows what the hell they're doing. Thank you.
So we have some time for questions. Does anybody want to ask Erin anything in particular? So I have a question for you.
Yes.
What did your day look like after you decided you didn't want to duct tape walls anymore?
When I realized, so she asked, what did my day look like when I realized I didn't want to duct tape walls anymore? When I realized that not being perfect wasn't going to make people not have respect for me, that I was enough, I was good enough, that, you know, what my breasts looked like in my shirt didn't make a damn bit of difference to anybody, and it really shouldn't have mattered to me as much as it did. There's an enormous amount of freedom that comes with that. There's an enormous amount of freedom that comes with the ability to admit that you're imperfect. And we work so hard at trying to cover it up that that it takes an enormous amount of energy away from us. And so I just felt free. And from that moment, I mean, I knew almost immediately after that happened that I was going to need to share that story with the world, because it was really like, it was like the universe came down and just put a lesson right in front of my face and said, it doesn't, you have to tell other people that they don't have to suffer anymore. So it kind of started a thing. So, yeah.
Anybody else? Yes.
When you do meet those people who are experiencing anxiety in some way, how do you navigate conversations with them? Like when you see they're struggling with an issue and it's just so in their face and they don't have that awareness, how do you bring it to their attention?
So I'm going to repeat that. So when you see people that are struggling in the midst of anxiety and they're sort of wallowing in it, what do you do to help them gain awareness?
Sure. I empathize because I can. I mean, who can't? I try to share a little bit without making it about me, but to sort of level the playing field and say, I get it. I had that, the other day, or it feels really, really overwhelming, but I promise you that you got it. Like, you got this. You can do it. And all the things that you're worrying about are that resistance that's telling you. But I also, I'm not sure if I sent this message effectively, but I think humor is incredibly important. It is very hard to live in this body. it is something that I struggle with every second of my life. And the thing that has helped to diffuse that is to embrace humor, to try not to take myself quite so seriously. And I smile and I ask questions, and how would it be different if you weren't feeling this anxiety? I'm standing up so I can see your face. And just whatever the person needs. It's, when you sit quietly with a person who's struggling and you really connect with them, you can get a feel for what's effective for them, how you're going to be able to connect with them in a way that's going to be meaningful. And sometimes you just have to listen. I get it. I understand. It's really hard, but it depends on the person. So.
Anybody else?
I read on the website the description about you for today that you are working on a project about mental health.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk about that?
Sure. So I come from a family with pretty significant mental health diagnoses. My mother lives with bipolar disorder. My grandfather had schizophrenia. And so growing up with those sort of in my orbit, I learned a lot about the world. And when I started working in the mental health field and I started working with people in advocacy and learning to tell their own stories, it occurred to me how much my grandparents in particular had to hide growing up in in the time in which my grandfather was diagnosed, which he was diagnosed in the early 1950s. And so mental health for me has always been something important. And over time, it became even more important to me to not only tell my own story, but to provide space for other people to be able to share their own experiences. And so I've done, quite a few things with storytelling and inviting, people from all walks of life. But then last year I started a project called If You Could See Me. And the idea around that was to invite individuals with a mental health diagnosis, have our photographs taken, which the photograph that you have of me is from that project. Dean Whitback is an amazing photographer in Richmond, and he took all of our photographs. And then we worked for several months on storytelling and how each person internalized the phrase, if you could see me, and what they wanted the world to know about them beyond their diagnosis. I think that telling our stories is fundamental to changing the world. We have to tell our stories differently to ourselves first, and then we can share them with the world. And when we do that, when we go through that sort of concentric circle, that process, we learn more compassion than we could have ever possibly imagined. And that's what I want. I want us to understand ourselves better so that we can have more compassion for one another. Right, she's had it. Yeah.
Thank you for coming here today. I learned a lot. How do you talk to your kids about this, about anxiety?
We're very open about anxiety, about our mental health. My daughter refers to herself as an anxious person. She is, oldest child. She is, very determined, very, sort of type A generally. And she comes to me and she says, now, Mommy, as an anxious person, I need you to understand that this type of situation makes me very uncomfortable. And I would prefer to be in this type of situation. Now, I don't know where the hell she learned how to do that, because I still can't, and I'm 40 years old. But we're just open about it. My mother is the only person who can still make me cry. And they see that. I try not to vomit it out all over everybody, but sometimes it's unavoidable. So throughout the course of my experience as a mother, I've had to explain to my children, Nana's brain works differently, and sometimes we can't really understand one another. And so we just talk candidly about what mental illness is in the same way that you would talk about someone who had a physical disability or a need. But I've always worked in mental health, and I've always worked in and around the disability field, and so there's just a very sort of open dialogue about understanding that everyone's different, and that we have to have space for people to process things the way that they process them. It's long, it takes time, it takes sitting down and saying everybody's different, and sometimes you're going to understand why they do things and sometimes you're not, and most of the time it's not about you. So.
Appreciate you being here. This was awesome.